My guest today is none other than Phil Lewis, who most of you will know from LA Guns. But we're going to take a little walk down Phil's memory lane and see what he can remember and I can remember without getting too lost in it. So, What we're going to do is start with Girl. And Girl meant the world to me. I was 12, 13 maybe. I was into Kiss, Adam and the Ants. And one day, the guy in my local record shop handed me these two albums by Girl. I think he'd split up by then, said, "You're gonna love this band." And I bought them on faith, and I did. And what was odd was I had no idea you'd split up, because that's not the way the world worked then.
No,
it was probably about 4 years later that I actually figured that out. But you were, because I was so big into US rock, maybe, what we were presented with as a UK youth at the time, which was Adam and the Ants that drifted into Duran Duran. Mm-hmm. Girl never really caught the attention of the mags like Sounds and Melody Maker, because this is pre-Kerrang.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering, it meant the world to me, but in hindsight, what did Girl mean to you?
Well, at the time it meant everything. And it's interesting because you said that, when you were like 12 or 13, you were like a sponge for new music. And I was exactly the same growing up in London. And I'm about 4 or 5 years older than you. And for me, you said it, Adam and the Ants. So for me, it was Black Sabbath, it was Deep Purple, it was Humble Pie. And these were bands, they were breaking, but you could still see them in like a hall, like a university hall. I saw a lot of gigs, uni gigs in the West End. Amazing stuff. And it was just kind of a calling. It was just, wow, I really, really want to do this. There was just one small minor detail I hadn't taken into account, as that I had no musical talent whatsoever.
I never stopped anyone else.
I couldn't write a song, couldn't hold a note. But it's just something that I felt really to my core, that something that I had to do. And I put some ideas together. I was actually pre-Girl. I was in a theater company called Incubus, and we were in the play, a punk rock band that had zoomed in from outer space, and I was the guitar player, Snake Hips, and ironically enough, most of my lines were just "LA, man." I couldn't wait to get so. I put a rudimentary guitar style together, really basic, just E, D, G, this stuff. And somehow or other, I got the gig. I got the acting gig with the music acting thing. But that was only going to last for a year. And I did it, and I loved it. I enjoyed it tremendously. And at the end of the year, they said, "Well, do you want to stay in the theater?" And I said, "Are you going to do music? Are you going to?" No, it's just, strictly, drama, strictly acting. I was like, no, I don't want to do that. I want to, this is when I decided I want to form a band. So I went, so I had a few quid, and I rented a 4-track studio in Gerrard Street in Soho. And I record 4 or 5 songs. There was a guy I knew on the circuit. I'd been doing like open mic nights, and I'd been like, really heavily. There was a big music scene. Everybody could play guitar. Everybody could knew somebody that was in. There was 6 degrees of separation from anyone. Like Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd. You knew somebody that worked for them or was involved with them, or a girlfriend or something like that. Sadly, that community is long gone.
Oh yeah.
And so John Benson was the chap who was helping me produce it, put it together. I'd never been in a studio before, but I had these songs, and he brought down a couple of guys to play. He brought Simon Laffey down to play bass, and his brother Jerry came down with him just to hang out at this tiny little studio in Chinatown. And Jerry came down, and although he didn't play on my first initial demo session, we hit it off. We were talking and, talking about bands. So we were both mad about this band Japan at the time. It was just like this band had come out of nowhere. They were completely androgynous. They were heavy as fuck. And for both of us, we just thought they were going to be the new Beatles.
And do you know what was really strange? I was going to throw that at you, and I decided not to. I was going to say that there are real overtones or undertones, don't know, of Japan on those girl albums.
Yeah.
Adolescent Sex and Obscure Alternatives, which David Sylvian since dismissed and threw in the trash, are two of my favorite albums of all time.
Absolutely.
They're so good.
Absolutely. Absolute complete masterpieces. And just so ahead of their time. I mean, not even ahead of their time, just completely in their own time.
They were like nothing.
Nothing you ever heard of. And they blew us away. A huge influence and a big influence on the way we looked, because, they were pretty boys and they were wearing makeup, but they were straight. They weren't gay. We were a much more... much dirtier. We had a lot more fun, and you see girl pictures and you see Japan pictures. They're very like stuck up and they're very, like posing, and you see girl pictures and we're all having a laugh. And, that was the difference between the two bands. Even though musically they were light years ahead of us. Some of the stuff they did. And it breaks my heart that David Sylvian is so dismissive of those first two records, because that was the soundtrack for 2 years, those two records. And after they did that, when they started to go into the sort of dozy, poncy, gentlemen take Polaroids, lost me overnight.
Me too.
But those first two records, they were huge influence. So, a lot like Japan Girl, it was a very short-lived project. So, we went from doing these demos in Gerrard Street and listening to... Tom Petty was a big influence. The Cars were a big influence. And just working from our flat in I can't remember, South Ken or somewhere, putting some songs together. And... first thing we put together was My Number. It was a very sort of Cars-like, chunky, and keep it simple, because we were incredibly simple. We recorded it, and it sounded all right. It sounded half decent. Hollywood Tease was next. And at this time, we decided that... I wasn't really cutting it as a guitar player, because all I did was, play a few bar chords.
Oh, you're still a guitarist at this point?
Well, yeah, we were working together. We hadn't done any gigs or anything, but, we didn't even have a drummer at that point. But, the two of us would be chugging away on our fake Les Pauls, playing through our Valve State Marshalls, thinking we were really the shit. And then we said, well, we need a guitar player. It was decided that I was going to become the singer. Jerry was going to play guitar, but we needed, a flash guitarist. And we put an ad in Melody Maker. Peroxide Guitarist wanted. And almost immediately we got a call from my name's Phil. I live in Walthamstow. I'd be interested in coming down and checking you out. And he came down and we hit it off immediately. So it was just a question of finding the bass player. And Simon, as I said, was already played on my demos. It's Jerry's brother. So he was recruited. And then we had a bunch of different drummers. We ended up with a guy called Dave Gaynor, who, in retrospect, is a little bit ploddy, but we weren't that good. We weren't the kind of a band that could use a syncopated drummer. You know, we we weren't Japan. What we needed was, you know, the meat and potatoes, solid 4 on the floor or the shuffle, and Dave Gaynor was the man to do it. So we had a band, we did some demos, and the concept of video was just starting around 78, 79. And they were big old machines, like the size of a washing machine. And they had these cassettes, the size of a small encyclopedia. And it was possible, if you had a few bob, to have your own video, and we did. And so we're like, well, let's make a video. So we did a little scouting around, and we found a studio up in Muswell Hill. That most of the time it was a porn studio, but they could give us a couple of hours between 11 and midnight to come in and shoot our video and lip sync to it. And we went up and did that. I remember we didn't have any props, so there was one of the camera guys had a really nice rice burner motorbike. I said, well, can we put that in the video then? So that's in there. And that was it. That was our debut in this porn studio in Muswell Hill. So we had the song, we got the cassette. At the time, I was romantically involved with a lady considerably older, wiser, and more mature than me, who was involved in the music business, and She had a lot of influence, and she was managed by Don Arden. I'm talking about Britt Eklund. Yep. She was managed by Don Arden, who had Jet Records, and Jet Records at the time were just blowing up with Electric Light Orchestra, and so they were like looking for new stuff. And Britt was like, "Oh, Don, darling, you're gonna love look at this wonderful band." And she basically got us the record deal. He agreed to do it. He would never. There's no way we would have got the deal without her. And so we were in. We were on. We had a band. We had a video. We had a record company. And the world was our oyster. And you know, like, we were using Japan as the blueprint. Japan had, like, splattered posters all over London. And they looked fantastic. But, you know, you didn't really know what they sounded like, nobody else had ever been in any other bands, so it was a complete mystery. So yeah, we followed that blueprint, and rather like Japan, and it didn't take too long because we were just on cloud 9, just floating on a cloud, and then all of a sudden there was a backlash. They were like, "You pretty boys can fuck right off. We spit rivets. See, we like Venom. We like Diamond Head. We like working class bands. You know, low down, dirty, you know, bands, and we were just absolutely not that. I mean, we were all from, like, as I said, you know, we're like South London, West London, like, not posh, but I mean, it's posh now, but it wasn't there. It wasn't then, and we were like, oh fuck. So this, you know, the record had come out, She Agreed had come out, and some people liked it. It was eclectic, it was weird, it was quirky. There was a couple of things on it that you could tap your toes to. It wasn't a bad record.
It's a great record.
We got a lot of stick from the media because it happened so quickly. Because of, you know, the Don Arden connection, the Britt Eklund connection, a lot of people felt that we hadn't paid our dues. So they were starting to get little chinks here in our, you know, our perfect armor. And I remember we were recording at Morgan Studios, and Jeff Barton wanted to come down from Sounds and interview us. And he'd been very complimentary about the album. She Agreed. He gave it a good review. But we were really in a strange place, just like Japan, because we came out at the beginning of a phase called the new wave of British heavy metal. And as I said, there were all these rivet heads like Angel Witch and Diamond Head, all great heavy bands in the style and look of Metallica, and we were definitely not that.
But what's strange about that is, but back then, you never, your press releases and things, then no one ever said this is a rock band or this is a glam rock band, or everything was kind of just bundled together.
Yeah.
So for them to kind of lump you in with that shows the big holes in the.
Sure.
Wow, there's nothing else to compare them to,
Right, exactly, and rather like the same way they categorized the Police and Elvis Costello as punk rock.
Yeah,
and absolutely not. But that was just how things were boxed and packaged. So I remember listening back to Sheer Greed and loving some of it and not being too thrilled with the rest of it, and then us going out. And that's when things started. It was great in London. We could play 2 or 3 nights at the Marquee, and we had our own crowd. But when we ventured out, we started to get hostility and a lot of it, and it threw us out of whack, and it certainly threw Don Arden and Jet Records out of whack. And they're like, like, you guys, you've got to change. You've got to become metal. You've got to become street cred. And so we did this sort of reinvention of ourselves in between the 2 records. And it's amazing. It was only 2 years at the time. It felt like an eternity. But going through that change, being forced upon us, absolutely forced upon us. And so by the time we had to start recording Wasted Youth, we were a band that lost its look, lost its vibe. Our vibe was like always experimental. Now it was like we got to focus, we got to be like heavy, we got to have something that they can mosh to, and it really wasn't us. And around that time, lots of drugs were involved, lots of feeling sorry for ourselves involved. Phil's about to get poached by Iron Maiden. Jerry's had it. He doesn't want to do it anymore. He just wants to fuck off with his boyfriend and go to the south of France. And it was bad. It was really fucking bad. And the second record came out, Wasted Youth came out. A couple of things on it were okay. But we got slammed, absolutely annihilated. And all the people, like Jeff Barton, and all the people that had, gotten behind us and were encouraging on the first record, they knew right away. They smelt a rat. We'd lost our vibe. We'd lost our mojo.
Yeah.
And it's very sad. It was as I said, it was only 2 years. But it was amazing. It was so much happened. It put us on the map. It got us involved in being around other musicians. We learned touring and fantastic times. But we learned that was definitely the hard way. And Phil Collen mentions that it's a shame that we didn't have like the kind of management Def Leppard had, like Q Prime or somebody that really knew what they were doing. We were on our own. And Don Arden and Jet didn't give a fuck. They were so wrapped up in Electric Light Orchestra. They just signed us to keep Brit quiet, I guess. And maybe we might get something going. You never know. But no, they were disappointed that Sheer Greed didn't have a big hit on it, and we'd already become kind of a handful because we weren't thrilled about the direction they wanted us to go in. And so it ended. It started beautifully, blissfully, and it ended real bad. And
it's kind of odd how you can look back on it and say there were a couple of good songs, wasn't really happy with most of it, and then on the next album there were a few good songs, but I really wasn't happy with it as a whole. And then Me on this side, I can put them on and they take me to a time and a place, which is exactly what an album should do, which was wonderful. I mean, I love Strawberries. I think that's a great
that's
song.
one. I like that too. I mean, I've got to say that the vibe on the first one on Sheer Greed is great, and stuff like Strawberries, and we were just being like cocky little bastards, really.
But that's what you wear.
Yeah, and that too, and we were, but we were having fun, and that was the direction they wanted us to go wasn't fun. There was nothing fun about it. It was bleak. It was it was grim. It was like working class, and we're not posh by any means. Me, Phil, or Jerry absolutely couldn't be further from the truth. But we didn't aspire to look like we'd been raised in the gutter. We had a little bit more of a mod sensibility to us than that. So it is what it is. I don't think I don't know if we could have even functioned without the new wave of British heavy metal, if we would have had any relevance at all. It was just, we got lumped into it, like Elvis and the Police got lumped into, and that's what got the thing rolling. But at this point, the wheels are just about to come off, which they did, and I'm glad when they did.
I mean, I was in a band for 10 years who went nowhere, so I understand how you have band members who are your best friend, and you also hate them for what you went through together, or the disagreements, or the dreams, and your vision was different than theirs, and so on. But it's just stuff, right? In hindsight, it's just stuff that got you where you were going.
No regrets, absolutely none whatsoever. I was a little. I wasn't quite sure what to do with myself when it was truly over.
Before we move on from Girl, though, you have to tell me getting kicked off the Kiss tour story.
It wasn't even a tour. It was
wasn't
3 dates. No, it wasn't a tour. It was 3 dates. It was 1 day in Bingley Hall in Birmingham, and then it was 2 dates in Wembley Arena. So we played Bingley, and the crowd pretty much hated us. The press weren't kind at that point, and they were already we were already had a big target on our back. And then this was the glorious time of when fans would piss into bottles and throw them up on stage to show their appreciation. That's if they liked the band. It was bad. I mean, we just shouldn't have been on that bill. I was like, at one point I was out there, and they were booing or yelling at us. I said, and I looked down, and I just looked at somebody, and I said, "Shut the fuck up!" And you've never heard 10,000 people growl in unison like that. The whole fucking building shook. It was like, "Rrr." And if they could have got hold of me, they would have torn me limb from limb. So the next shows were in London at the Wembley Arena, and so we showed up on Friday. It was Friday and Saturday, and we like our sound check, and can we do something? Can we play? And they're like, well, no, you can't set up just yet. I said, we're kind of busy. I said, well, what were you doing? And what they were doing is Diana Ross was dating Gene Simmons at the time, and she was fucking around on his suspension cable thing, flying around the stage. And that was more important than getting the opening band on and getting us set up. We were running like literally minutes before they opened the doors, and she's fucking around, like swinging around and shit. And the Kiss crew were really, really incredibly unhelpful, hostile, and aggressive. This is good. In Bingley. Just before we play, I get summoned into the dressing room, and Gene Simmons wants to lecture me So he's looking at me through his mirror while he's putting his makeup on. And he goes, our songs are like our children. And we don't want you to do You Love Me in the set. And I was like, well, you know, our songs are like our children too. It's a song that we don't have many songs, Gene. I said, we only know 9-10 songs. And so he says, well, you know, I don't want you to play it. But of course we did play it. We did play it. There's nothing going to stop us from playing because that's all we knew. So he's already pissed off at me. And so we knew better than to show up the next day.
Right.
So we didn't. And I'm sitting in a Chinese restaurant on Kensington High Street, and it's pissing down with rain. I'm sitting there with Bryson Graham, the drummer. And I look at this Brillo, it's pissing down. We're supposed to be on Wembley right now. We're supposed to be on stage at Wembley Arena. And we're sitting here like a couple of losers in a Chinese restaurant. And it was all made. They made a big deal about it, us walking off the tour. No, we just didn't bother showing because we were just being treated so bad. Honestly, at this point, you know, we were whipped. You know, everyone was kicking the shit out of us. We didn't have any support. We had nothing from the label. We had nothing from the fans. We had nothing from the press. It was a shit show.
For what it's worth, we never saw any of that.
No, I know. And it's amazing. People like yourself say that, you know, they were at that, you know, Bingley and they go, oh, you were absolutely fantastic. And I said, well, didn't you hear them booing and spitting? He's like, no, we were just watching you. So I think people have can drown it out. I saw Japan open for Blue Oyster Cult at Hammersmith Odeon. And I got a taste of what was in for us. The crowd, they were such cunts. They were just, David Sylvian's up there doing his, you know, obscure alternatives, and they're fucking yelling and they're spitting and they're just carrying on like fucking primates. It was absolutely embarrassing. And Dave Sylvian, to his credit, stood his ground, finished the song, and they all silently walked off, and everyone's like, yeah, we won. And it was like, wow, that's I wouldn't know what to do if that happened to me. Oh, I sure learned quick.
That's a strange pairing, Japan and Blue Oyster Cult.
It was terrible, you know. It was, you know, like management had put that together, and I saw that, and oh my God, the punters were merciless. Absolutely, it was heartbreaking to see that.
Wow, thanks for that. I don't know, does it hurt at all? Did you ever?
No, not at all. And in many ways,
as time eased the wound.
It's it's kind of relief. You know, I think it would have been a bit of a curse if say Girl had hit the jackpot and say been as big as Def Leppard. I still had a lot of growing to do. I had a lot of growing up to do. And I think that that kind of mega success can actually be very detrimental and stunt your growth, stunt emotional growth. We see, you know, like look at Tommy Lee, look at Vince Neil, you know, they're just like, they're like children trapped in old men's bodies. And in many ways it was tough, but I'm a warrior, you know, and I was like, okay. And I dealt with it, and you know, I went into the void, into the cold, bandless, record deal-less, and getting well into my 20s, getting into my mid to late 20s, and as far as I was concerned, the clock was running out. You know, it wasn't. I didn't see how much. I didn't see much future on the horizon.
That's a funny state of mind that us musicians, I'm not in your league, but it's a funny state of mind that you get into with that ticking clock, isn't it? And you're like, wow.
Oh, yeah.
Jim was dead at 28. Best get moving.
Oh, yeah, sure, exactly. And I was put together a couple of musical ideas, but, you know, nothing was really making me happy. I put together this band with Rudy Riviere, who was brilliant guitar player at the time. He really was one of the first English guitar players to master the hammer-on Van Halen thing, which, you know, we were all incredible. Ooh, let's put that in all our songs. And a couple of guys from a local band called 720. And we put together a band called New Torpedos. We did a couple of recording sessions. We played Dingwalls, the Marquee, a couple of times. It was okay. It was very, very cookie cutter, you know, like we were all, you know, all going for the, you know, the shitty Def Leppard Simmons drum sound. Boom, boom, boom. You know, everything had to be along those lines, and wasn't terribly happy with it. Just sort of going through the motions and certainly not making any money. It certainly wasn't a profession. It was just that kind of like, what else do we do? And I found the demos on YouTube today. They're all there. Yeah. Which surprised me. Yeah, no, it's fantastic, you know, and it's funny because I went to all that trouble, you know, I've kept all those demos. I kept all the cassettes and everything, and I needn't have bothered, you know, and I've traveled around the world. I've moved, I've like 50, 100 different places since then, and I've always made a point dragging them around. I needn't have bothered. I can just look them up on YouTube now. So yeah, I'm sitting in the wilderness, lost in the wilderness, and then I finally get a break. I get a call from Bernie Tormé. Which brings us on to stage 2. Yeah. Tormé was bang on the money for me. That caught me right place, right time. Back to Babylon came out. And oddly, or not oddly, I actually saw you guys live on ECT. Do you remember that? Yeah, I sure do. I went 2 weeks on the run, making my 300-mile trek from Wales with my paper round money. Your pilgrimage. I am going to this show. Fantastic. Yeah. Good attitude. Because how else did you see? You know, nobody toured North Wales. No. You were all stuck in the Marquee. That circuit was well wrapped up. Right. I mean, we might play Tivoli perhaps, you know, once in a while, but that would be as far as we got close to you. For the most part, it was London, Birmingham, Manchester. Yeah, that was an eye opener. Tormé was a good band, but again, the press weren't particularly kind. Not really. You know, the press weren't bad. The first of all, when he said, "Would I be interested?" I said, "I don't know," you know, and he said, "Look, I'm going to send you over a cassette of some stuff and check it out and let me know what you think." And it did, and he sent me over. I still have the cassette, and I was like listening to it in the bath, and I was like, "Fuck, this is good. This is really, really solid." 3-piece band. It was just Bernie, a bass player, and a drummer, and it was so tight. And I'd never done anything like that before. Never done, you know, like to be an integral part of a band like that. Where the pieces fit. And yeah, it was like, I knew right away from the first rehearsal, from the first gig, we did the gigs, the place erupted. We nailed it, you know, like songs like Mystery Train and Baby Loves a Vampire. Yeah, fantastic. We sounded good. We had the punters. We didn't really have the press. The press and the industry were enamored with Boy George, Duran Duran, Bucks Fizz. It was rock and roll was the antithesis of what we should have got a decent record deal on A&M, and they were interested. And Dave Rosen, the guy at the time, he's just like, "I'm sorry, you know, we love the band, we can't do anything with it." Because the radio's not going to touch it. Media's not interested. It's just people have moved on. They don't want the rock. They want pop. They want sort of crossover, Spandau Ballet kind of, you know, like they want the pretty boys with the haircuts. And so that got really frustrating. being that good and selling out all our shows, and putting out that great record, Back to Babylon. And I have a theory. I don't honestly think that, around that time, I think if Guns N' Roses had been in London, trying to get something together, get something going, and it's not that far-fetched, because there are many American bands have had success in England prior to hitting it in the States. Jimi Hendrix comes to mind. Stray Cats come to mind. They were big in England before they broke in the States. Had that been the case, I don't think a label would have had the guts to sign them. I really don't. It's just like, because they were just, it was impossible. It was impenetrable. So that was the death knell of the band, when we knew that there was only so far that we could go. But musically, I'd learned so much from Bernie and Chris Howman, and just really, really enjoyed, and I'm incredibly proud of practically everything.
Well, Bernie was kind of like Mick Ronson with more knobs on his guitar. That's how I always saw Bernie. He was like that. Wow, there's so much depth going on here, and he was such a good guitar player. He was brilliant.
Songwriter. A great songwriter. He reminded me of a tripped out Rory Gallagher. He had the same chops as Rory, played the same guitar, had the same vibe, but he was a bit more ethereal, a bit more Hawkwind in his approach to songs. And I just loved him. I loved him so much, and God, he was funny, and I loved being in this band. And I really felt from the kick-in that I'd got in Girl, I really felt good. I felt like justified that, and I felt like, it was, for me, that Tormé was a big comeback era for me personally. I can't thank Bernie enough and Chris enough for getting me on board. And I was really keen to do it and make it sound great. And it did sound great. It was a great band. And, but, just the frustration of the fact that we couldn't, we put out Back to Babylon. We basically self-financed that. So we really needed a bit of help on a second record from a label. And no one would touch us. So it got frustrating. We'd bicker about money and how much we were getting for gigs, and we kind of lost the plot. And it was, the writing was on the wall. I could see that, it wasn't going to get anywhere. And at this point, I'm really at my late 20s. I'm about like 28 or 29. And I'm like, this is it. You're fucked, Lewis. This is you are absolutely done. And I remember I got to see photos from my 30th birthday, and half of the people that showed up to my birthday party, my birthday presents were like a little paper sachet in my hand containing either coke or heroin. And that was it. It was bleak. I was just like, oh, fuck. I don't want to be 30. And out of the fucking blue, Alan Jones calls me, the English bloke who was the sax player in Aiming Corner, who moved out to LA and opened a bunch of boutiques on Melrose Avenue, was managing this band called LA Guns. Had I heard of them? And like the LA scene was just blowing up, and they need a singer, and would I be interested, and blah blah blah, and he's like, I said, yeah, it sounds great, and I got the cassette and the picture, and he goes, do you like it? And I go, yeah. He goes, well, how soon can you come out? I said, well, how about tomorrow? So yeah, he got me a ticket. And this was about April 1986, 87, just a dash after my 30th birthday. And I couldn't have been more wrong. I thought life was over, and it had really just begun.
Was it? I guess it was. How can I put it? Fortuitous, maybe, that you did all your growing up thousands of miles away. I mean, most of them probably maybe had heard of Tormé, but most of it was probably in secret, right? You could probably wander around LA and no one would know what you were talking about.
No, it's true. Tormé wasn't very well known. However, Girl were huge in underground,
right?
And that whole West Hollywood vibe. Even though nothing had ever been officially released in the States, it was everywhere. But and everybody loved it. Like the Guns N' Roses guys loved it, and like Girl, Hanoi Rocks. These were the bands that the rockers were listening to in Hollywood just before it blew up. So that's
kind of a bit of a coup for LA Guns then.
It certainly was. But ironically, as I said, going from being with Tormé, with Bernie, I'd learned so much and developed technically as a musician, and I was so ready to take that knowledge and experience and do something and take it to another level. And then when I spoke to Tracy Guns, he's like, "Oh no, mate, I want you to be Phil Lewis from Girl." So it was like I had to regress. He said, "No, just be that punky, spiky pineapple, cheeky, lovable London guy, and that's what we want." And that's what I did, and it worked. I never pretended to be American. I still don't, even though I've actually been here longer than I was there. And I have wonderful memories of those days, and I do cherish them. But I could never imagine living in England. It's a different England now, of course. Isn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah. I'd be it'd be just so depressing. So I'm quite happy here in the States.
What would be? I was knee deep in the LA scene. It was my thing at that time.
Yeah,
from bottom to top, trading demo cassettes. Things like bands like Love Hate before they were Love Hate. We'd ship them around the world in their
Jet Boy.
Yeah.
When the first night I got into town, Tracy took me out to see some live band, see what the scene was all about. Wow. And I saw Jet Boy, and just thinking about it gives me goosebumps. They were so good. They were so incredibly, incredibly good, and just like huge, fantastic sound. Sadly, the albums that they made never captured their live strength.
They were brutal.
They were just monsters live, and sadly, if the records had have just captured a bit more of how they sounded live, I think they would have been massive. But yeah, it was a great scene. There were lots of great. Love Hate was huge. Bang Tango, Faster Pussycat, all this stuff was going. It was a new world for me, and it's just like I honestly felt like I'd died and gone to heaven. Just being at such a miserable low point in rainy London, at the threshold of my 30s. It was a real gift from the rock and roll gods, let me tell you. And I can't, even to this day, me and Tracy, we've had our ups and downs and we've had arguments, but I've got a big debt of gratitude. He changed my life. He dragged me out, and I don't know. I mean, I look at I'm sure you've seen the wretched state of Paul Di'Anno he's in right now. He's trying to get money for a knee operation, and Paul and I were about the same age, same generation, and I wonder, if I'd stayed, is that what I would have been my prospect? Diabetic, strung out. But
you didn't.
Yeah. No, I kept rolling.
You rode the pony.
Yeah, that's right. And without being rock and roll has been my salvation. It saved me every time. right from the start of my career, right the way to now. And it's the thing that everybody warned us most about. Oh, you can't do it. You don't stand a chance. The odds are so stacked against you, and all of that. Just plowed on through.
Tracy had good heritage. Anyway.
Oh yeah, he's fantastic. Yeah, I mean, and he was absolutely destined for great things. I mean, he'd been learning to play guitar since he was 7 or 8 years old. Him and Slash were buddies. They went to the same high school, Fairfax High School. And that was when, rather like they every year, like a certain an elite group of attorneys graduate from university and they're snapped up, or surgeons, and in this case it was guitar players, and it was absolutely obvious that both Slash and Tracy had huge futures ahead of them as long as they didn't fuck up.
And I guess everyone in LA fucked up somehow, some way. It was inevitable that it was strange because the bands just kept on coming.
Well, that's what happens in bubbles, and that was, just the writing on the wall. There were so many of these bands, and, the hair was getting bigger, the teeth were getting bigger, and, it was getting more and more schmaltzy, and all these new bands. I mean, it was, Poison was the blueprint. Everyone wanted to, look like Poison. They wanted to be pretty with, big, clean white teeth. And, like Guns a little bit grittier than that. We had the leather jackets, the greasy hair. And so we once again, we got lumped into what didn't exist. Term didn't exist. It was just metal then. But we got lumped into hair metal somehow or other. And there were moments we were doing the do, but I never really considered us a hair metal the same way that like Warren or Poison or Slaughter.
No, you were just a rock and roll band.
That's right.
Great, rock and roll band, like
that's
that's what we want.
Yeah. That's what.
But what
that was our objective.
That must have been. I mean, the whole Guns N' Roses story is well documented 900 times around the world.
Yeah.
But they took off so fast and so widespread. Could you have handled it as LA Guns? Or you glad that it kind of went a little bit slower?
What they were and what they are is a phenomenon. And when you're a phenomenon, you create your own tide, and they had already, by the time I got to LA in 86, 87, they'd already blown up, and they weren't. Occasionally they'd be back in town, but for the most part they were gone. They were touring. They were doing their own shows in Japan, or going out with the Rolling Stones or whatever. So it was pretty much our town.
That's them out of the way. Excellent.
Yeah, it was pretty much. We could. I certainly could have handled it. Being after what I'd been through with Girl and Tormé, I was definitely had the emotional fortitude to be able to deal with that. It didn't happen, but it's okay. We did great, and we got gold records on the wall, and it changed our lives, and has to this day.
But what you've got is something better, because like the GNR Candle are their own tribute band at the moment, and you are not. You've got that longevity thing. I know you've had your ups and downs, but these last 2 or 3 albums.
Well, it's actually the last. It's from the reunion.
Yeah, they sound like you mean it.
Yeah, and it was like when I came back, when I decided I was going to work with him again, after 15 years, I really felt like we didn't have a moment to lose. We needed to get right back and not fuck around. And he had so many ideas, and Tracy had developed, and it was great. It was great to be back. He had this fantastic band. He had Shane playing drums, Johnny playing bass. And we put something together real quickly, and it sounded great. And the classic stuff sounded great and authentic, and the new stuff was compelling and really inspired me. I'm like, money doesn't really make that much difference. It is, you got enough. At this point, I'm not doing anything for the money, but like to be inspired musically, and to be excited about going in the studio, and be excited about like this Cannonball song. It's like, we've never played it live. It was written in isolation. It was recorded in isolation. We all recorded it not in our bedrooms, but in our studios.
Yeah.
And so it's just going to be phenomenal when we do get together. I think we got a few weeks, 2 or 3 weeks. We come out in November. The record drops in November, and then we're going to do a bunch of shows in the LA, Vegas area, just to get our feet wet again. But I'm really, really looking forward to Cannonball, playing it live for the first time with the band, and then playing it for the first time live with the band in front of punters. And just knowing, it's such a smash. It's such an immediate, it just grabs you. That song is fantastic. And, I'm going to do all the antics, with the dressing up as the pirate,
yeah,
pulling the wig off and all of that. It's going to be a romp, and it's going to be around November, December. So it's going to have a Halloween pantomime vibe to it. I'm looking forward to getting back out, having some fun.
Just for the record here, the new album's called Checkered Past.
Checkered Past, right.
Cannonball is should we call it the lead single? The first?
Yeah, it's the opening song on the record, and now it's going to be the opening song in the set. And
the video's up and around on YouTube.
Yeah,
you want to check it out.
Yeah, look it up, yeah.
I think it's your best song since Hellraiser's Ball.
Hellraiser's good. Love. Yeah, we like that too. That's in our set. We're going to be playing that. Speed was pretty good.
Yep.
Speed's a good song. That's in our set. But there's some great stuff on.
You're
this
not
new
short
one.
Of material to fill a set.
Oh no. In fact, that's our problem. Is we got too much of it. Especially, we have a summer tour lined up. We're going out with Tom Kiefer, the guy from Cinderella. For people that don't know, it's going to be a 3-package. It's going to be Faster Pussycat, LA Guns, and Tom Kiefer, just playing sheds and theaters around summertime. A fun summer tour, and we're basically being given a 60-minute set, scratching our heads. We don't know what to do in 60 minutes. We've got so much stuff. Yeah, we could easily play 2 hours. So we're learning, enough songs for a 2-hour set, but obviously we're not going to play that every night. Just like the Stones, we're going to pick and choose what songs. But we're going to have a go at a song called It's Over Now, which was sort of a kind of a hit single video kind of a thing that we never played live. We've never done it live. We've never played it in front of a crowd. So it's for a song that, did relatively well, extremely well in today's standards. We're going to have some fun. We're going to do Let You Down from this new record as well. Oh, and I'm actually going to do 3. I'm not sure we'll do 3 every night, but the Get Along sort of acoustic. I'm going to send you this stuff later.
Okay, that'd be great.
And you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, as all LA Guns record, it's very diverse. Every song sounds completely different from the next. There's no central theme. A lot of bands do, and they're really good at it and have great success at it. But it's never been us. We always like to keep it interesting, keep it different for ourselves. And
And that right there is Japan following you through the whole of your career.
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
I wish.
Yeah, and it cracks me up. I looked up to them and just worshipped and revered them. But in terms of success, I've done infinitely better. I've done pretty good. For a kid from London, like you're not bad. I'm pretty happy with it. For the most part. And yeah, it's a good legacy, I think, and I'm proud of it. I didn't sell out. There was a couple of things like Juliet from Girl. That was the song that Don Arden insisted.
Does selling out really?
I've got your hit. I've got your hit here. Well, it's a Russ ballad song. Imagine giving David Sylvian a Russ ballad song and go, well, here you go, mate.
Yeah, okay. I'll go with you on that.
So yeah, but we did it, and it sucked, and it was awful, but it's just
But that's the business, right?
It's the business, and I've got to say, during this downtime, this quarantine time, I've been reading a lot of books from icons from the 70s, Peter Grant, Peter Frampton, Steve Marriott. I just finished Don Arden's book, and it was a hoot. I really, really enjoyed it. I've got Elton John's book going, and I just got Pete Way's book. So all these people that were huge influences in the 70s for me, I'm just really, really getting right into the psyche. And
hey, everyone had a shit ride.
Yeah, that's right. It wasn't. It was by no means unique to me, and it's good to know.
Yeah. Before you go, because we've done an hour.
Actually, speaking of Pete Way, I've recorded a couple of songs just after finishing Checkered Past. I got contacted by his wife asking if I'd be willing, would I be up for doing they got a record. Mike Klink's producing a record that should be out. I imagine should be out like early next year. And it was a couple of songs that you can clearly hear that it's Pete and his style, his nuance, and it's fun. I hope that if it surfaces and you hear it, let me know what you think.
Alrighty, I will. UFO were the first band I saw live.
God, they were amazing. They were just so amazing. We're heavily influenced on Girl because there again, every song they did was different. There wasn't a central theme like
their first 5 albums are a massive pile of shit.
Yeah, well, that's back then that's when they had A&R, artist and development. They would sign a band and expect that it would be 3 or 4 records before they found their feet. And that was very much the case with UFO. I got involved. I got on board with them just around the Strangers record, the live record. And that's when I was told that, hey, there's this band UFO and you guys are going on tour with them. What do you think? And I was like, wow, these guys are amazing. I loved it.
Such a good band.
And good guys too.
Yeah, they've had their share of stories.
Yeah, sure did.
But two or three things before you disappear. I found out today that you released a solo album that I'd never, ever heard of.
Yeah.
It's great.
It's all right.
Was that just kind of like a I've got nothing else to do. Let's just...
Yeah.
I've got to do something.
It was, at that point, when I left LA Guns, I didn't, after Vicious Circle came out and it did nothing and we did nothing, nobody was interested. I just kind of got into recording. I bought like an 8-track reel-to-reel tape recorder and a mixer.
Well, like an old Tascam thing.
Yeah, I taught myself how to record. And I started doing band demos. I converted my garage into a studio and just became a recording engineer. And recording demos for local bands and very different types of music, some jazz music, some hip hop, some rock, nothing that ever went on to do anything. But it was something I really, really enjoyed. And it got me on a personal level with not necessarily working musicians, but passionate musicians at that time on my level, because I wasn't making any money either. And I had the equipment, I had the facilities. So I would like put together something in the morning, sit in the balcony and write a song. Oasis were on fire at that time. So it was real simple. Just go and sit there and write something like Wonderwall or some, and I had some drummer friend who I'd recorded his band. And so I had plenty of musicians, a good pool to choose from. And I'd write the song in the morning and record it that night. And before I knew it, I'd compiled a record. And I was like, okay, let's see if anyone's interested. And I got a record deal from a very obscure label in Japan who agreed to put it out. And they pressed up, I don't know how many copies, but it came out. It was called El Nino then. Right. And then that floated around, didn't really do anything. And then I got approached by Brian Pereira from Cleopatra, who said, well, what's this? Who owns this? And I hadn't signed anything with the Japanese label. He goes, well, I'll put it out. So he put it out, but it was called we changed the title. We changed it to More Purple Than Black. But it's the same record with just different packaging and a different title. And that, it came around at that time, just when I was recording and engineering other bands. Okay.
And then the other thing I need to touch on, which we've conveniently missed out, is Filthy Lucre. Because I heard that album for the first time this morning. I knew you'd done it. I managed to
You never heard it before, yeah.
Never heard it before. Fuck, it's so good.
It's so good, yeah.
And you've got a lot of history there.
Yeah, sure. It's Steve Dior and I put Filthy Lucre together. Now, when I was recording the vocals for Vicious Circle in LA at that time, Steve and I were real close. We were really good friends, and we were playing together. And he coming down the studio and helping me a lot with the vocals and with the writing. So it was during that time when LA Guns couldn't be in a room together.
Yeah.
Like we had to be like, Tracy had the studio from a certain time, and then I'd have mine booked certain times. And it was just weird. We just really, really didn't like each other. We'd been pulled and stretched and we didn't know what was going on. So we took it out on each other. When we really should have been like more cohesive, more brotherly, we were actually the opposite. But so Steve and I would be sitting in the studio with hours to kill. So we just started, we said, fuck it, let's do an album. So it was an album that was recorded on LA Guns dime in LA Guns studio. At the same time, we were recording Vicious Circle and just having fun. Oh my God, he is character. The stories, because his band in London were the London Cowboys. Yeah. And he played with Sid Vicious, he played with Johnny Thunders, real, talk about credibility. Just so connected and so funny and really incredibly talented, and we're still really, really good friends. And that was something. It was a lot of fun, and it would have been a dream come true because I knew LA Guns. I mean, the writing was on the wall. They'd already told us, even if we gave them, if we delivered something like The Dark Side of the Moon, the band was still doomed. It was like nobody wanted to touch what we were. I've been through so many of these bubbles. They usually last about 2 years, and you go in, it's all great, and at the end, it's you're shredded to pieces. And that was the same thing at the end of the LA Guns, So I was hoping that Filthy Lucre might do something, but it really didn't. It sort of fizzled out. And
no, it's strange because I was knee deep in it and I missed it. So what the hell chance did anyone else then?
But the album's called Pop Smear.
Pop Smear, yeah. And it's a lot of fun.
Find it.
Yeah. You can find it on YouTube.
Oh, yeah. But it's a gem.
Thank you.
Undiscovered.
Yeah. No, I love working with Steve and on that, particularly on that album. It's a lot of fun. Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah, it's great. Stay in touch. I've got your email. I'm going to send you a link that I want you just to keep to yourself of the rest of the record, and let me know what you think. And
I've got to say, it sounds, from the 3 tracks I've heard, it sounds like 1987 again.
Yeah,
and sounds so clued in and meaning what you're bringing.
It's honestly, when everyone else was sitting at home just not knowing what to do with themselves, I've never been busier. During this pandemic, this year, 18 months off, not so much now because it's done, but it was great having that to do, having, vocals to compile and record, because I ended up recording it in my house too, so I had to rehone my engineering skills. So
I saw that you built yourself a vocal booth in the
under the
stairs.
Yeah, I kicked out Harry Potter and I put a microphone in there.
Got to be done.
It has to be done.